Good evening, welcome to Show Studio. Tonight we're going to be discussing Raf Simons Autumn Winter 15 with our fantastic triplet of guests. Dean, if you'd like to start the intros.
I'm Dean Kissick and I'm a journalist.
I'm Rob Meyers and I work as a creative director.
And I'm John Michael O'Sullivan, I'm an architect and a writer.
I'm Daryoush and I work at Complex Magazine in the UK. So Raf Simons, we always do Raf Simons. I can't imagine not doing Raf Simons. Where do we think Raf, where's Raf going to go with this collection? Dean, what are your, we haven't had you on this season yet. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. I know 2 seasons ago he did a artist collaboration, and the season before he kind of went into his archive. So now find like some new angle, a new challenge.
Yeah, it was a slightly obtuse, weird question, I suppose. I just kind of like, I suppose I'm trying to avoid saying why is Raf God, because I feel like we've done that quite a few times. Why did you want to do the Raf panel, Rob?
Well, you know, as you say, it's that whole Raf is God thing. I don't know, it's always something that I feel is kind of super relevant, and it's always one of those things where even if it walks and you don't love it immediately, you kind of blame yourself for not loving it immediately, because it's one of those things where you think that is he ahead of us? So it's that kind of enjoyment I get from it, of inspiration and kind of where he's getting his inspiration. For me personally as well, it's he references so heavily, and it's, you know, such heavily researched, and kind of the visual referencing is such an amazing thing for me. So that's why I love it.
John, you were saying you didn't really get Raf.
Yeah, I'm a Raf atheist. Rafeist.
Rafeist,
there is a term. I suppose I've come into this whole thing relatively late in terms of, you know, starting off as a spectator and a customer before ever sort of considering writing about fashion and kind of thinking about it in that way. And I think when I first saw Raf Simons stuff, which was usually in sale rails actually, in places like Browns and Liberty, I never genuinely understood what it was about. I got, you know, this is sort of late 90s, early 90s, I understood what Tom Ford was doing, I understood what Hedi Slimane was doing. I didn't get what he was doing, and I didn't understand why people, I mean, a lot of my friends bought the stuff, and I never understood why they sort of wanted to wear it, because even though it was kind of interesting, it just didn't seem like clothing that was relevant to our lives. And then just be where it was all coming from. And then I suppose as I've gotten more into all this, first as a blogger and then writing for sort of publications, you kind of get immersed in it, and you do start to see the cult of Raf. And I guess when you're the only person who doesn't see it, I'm not the only one, but one of the people who doesn't, you're always looking to see what everybody else sees. You're trying to figure that out. And I can look back and see silhouettes and see really interesting things, but I just don't have a natural connection to it or a natural affinity for the clothes themselves. So there are collections that have been great that I have really enjoyed, but they've been, you know, sort of quite spread out across the entire Raf archive.
Well, this one's called Into the Archives. What is it? It's no longer relevant or something?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
This should be perfect for me.
There you go.
Fresh start.
We'll see what's not relevant.
Yeah.
It says to the archives, right?
Yeah, to the archives.
See, I was wondering whether there was some weird double entendre that was involving Rude archives, because it's very far away.
I couldn't decide whether it was a positive or a negative thing. As in, like, it's a dead thing, or it's
Well, his last collection, I think, was all based on his archive.
It was so personal as well.
And it was all kind of images from his archive with things referencing like Japanese prints, referencing the first stockists he had, and like jumpers from the friends he made, like Olivier Rizzo, when they first met in Antwerp. But I think even photos of his mum and dad, stuff like that. I think, and it was literally not just influenced by it, but those were taken and printed on the clothes and collaged. So presumably he won't do the same thing again.
So if this is him saying, I'm done with that stage, on to the next. He did that, didn't he, before, when he sort of did the collection where he sort of declared that he was no longer in his adolescence stage. So maybe he's like the Jay-Z of fashion. He just keeps retiring from his like past life. Because he also retired that time when he actually retired and then came back.
Oh yeah. Forgot that, yeah. Yeah, he guest edited an issue of ID in his retirement, I remember. It's good. Yeah, because I think at the beginning you asked me, what can we expect from him? And you kind of know from the last few seasons, there's things that keep on popping up, but I don't want to say it, because hopefully he'll come up with something completely new, as he has done many times, because he did explicitly say last season, having worked with Sterling Ruby, done an artist collaboration, I really needed to push myself to find something else interesting, challenging, which is why he went back to the archive. And hopefully now, yeah, like if he destroys the archive, does something different from what he's been doing, which has been really popular for the last few years, that would be good.
I like the fact I read something this season with him saying that the Sterling Ruby collection, he's a very controlled person, and working with an artist that doesn't control, he was kind of really inspired by that. So I think you could see that last season, you know, like you say, with him going back to his personal archives, and you know, if he's talking about them again this season, I like that idea of him kind of letting the control go and kind of seeing what he comes out with.
Do you feel with Sterling Ruby was such a moment, and it's maybe a bit unfair to bring this up during Raf, because it's obviously not just him that's victim, but do you feel that we're at the point where you're bored of collections by the time they come out? I mean, I know you bought some Sterling Ruby and Raf Sterling Ruby, and I did too, but I mean, it wasn't particularly because of the catwalk, it's because, I'll just name drop grotesquely, but I was on a boat and A$AP Rocky was on the boat, and he had a big camel coloured
the one that none of us could get.
Yeah. So when I walked into Machine A and saw the Raf sweater, I was just like, but I didn't realise that I just bought it essentially because I thought I was going to turn into A$AP Rocky if I wore it. But do you feel like we've got to the point now where these collections are so powerful, so covered, so written about, so seen, that by the time they get in the store you're a bit like over it?
I think personally I would actively try to avoid wearing or listening or like even going anywhere that A$AP Rocky's been, you know. It's like a mark of terribleness, but in spite of his endorsement we can still but you know, I've never really been big on Hood by Air, but when he releases a song cussing down Hood by Air, you think, wow, you know, maybe Hood by Air's all right. They must have something about them, like start to like them again.
You're being contrary.
No, I'm not. I mean, no one likes A$AP Rocky, man. A$AP Rocky's terrible.
Because it's over.
He's terrible, yeah.
Oh, that's so outrageous.
He's hanging off Raf's coattails, isn't he? It's just like something you can reference in a song to make yourself seem... You know, but no, collections are still exciting.
It's not really to do with that. I mean, I just saw this dude on a boat who has an enormous amount of charisma, and he reminded. The point being, it's less about A$AP Rocky, whether he's cool or whether he's in a Salvatore Ferragamo ad, and more to do with the idea that these massive shows, massively overexposed shows, like, are you bored? Do you ever think, oh, I'm bored of this by the time it's on sale, or no? Does that never happen?
I don't. I mean, I'm reaching a point now, end of season, where I'm kind of bored of seeing it. But it's one of those things that I know the feeling when I first bought it and when I first saw it. For me, it wasn't A$AP, it was Sterling Ruby. It was one of those things.
Obviously, that was
No, of course. But it's, you know, I was kind of, when I read that it was, you know, he was doing a collaboration with Sterling Ruby, I was a big fan of Sterling, so I was like, can't wait to see what it comes out with. And I wasn't I was expecting like a print on a sweater, not the intensity of his involvement, which is what excited me so much. But now, come end of season, it's one of those things that I still love it, but it's definitely, you know, you've seen it so much, but I know that I can put it back in my wardrobe, like not wear it for, you know, 6 months, a year, 5 years, and then take it out and remember that feeling. And I suppose a lot of fashion is about that. It's about that moment, isn't it?
Because it's some kind of crazy magic that you can want stuff almost a year after first seeing it. Because I know I've bought a few things in the last couple of months that I've been looking at for a year, and I've still really wanted them. And I mean, that's quite an achievement, you know, because there has been a lot of talk about competing with fast fashion, and there has been a lot of talk about brands needing to sell straight off the catwalk.
I think the interesting thing with Raf is as well, like, that's a very fair point, but the interesting thing with Raf is the fact that so many people buy his archives now, as in 10-year-old archives. And that's, you know, it's like when you see collections like this, you're like, oh, this is great now, but like I say, like 5-10 years down the line, that's one of those things that you look at. And I think that's one of the, for me, the kind of that cult of Raf thing is...
Somebody posted Autumn Winter 05, I think, earlier, because of the broad trousers. And,
it's me.
Was it you? Yeah.
There's still a trouser crisis again, isn't it?
Well, because there was that little moment when they tried it in the mid-noughties, because I remember The Independent asked me for a quote. It's my friend James Anderson, and they were like, will wide trousers come back? And at that point I was like, no, not right now, they won't.
Have wide trousers come back?
Well, yeah.
That's interesting.
No?
Not on our particular legs, but...
Yeah,
not on our
It's bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Rob's knees are keeping us, like, fashionable.
Should I? Right there for you.
But yeah, that is true. But is it? I don't feel like... I mean, obviously, the Sterling Ruby collection will be collectible forever, right? But I don't feel like... I mean, we're not going to see a collection on that level of 05, 04, 02... those kind of collections tonight, are we? Like that kind of, you know, museum pieces? Or do you think Raf still puts out stuff that's like museum piece worthy?
I think it's the hope that it can be. You know?
Yeah.
I think it's... You never thought he could, you know, after the kind of Jill Sander period, and it all became so minimal and about the shapes, which was beautiful. But then when he came back into that kind of this era of, you know, heavy imagery and graphics and kind of that, you kind of start looking at it again in that way. So it's the kind of the hope that that magic is still waiting in the wings. You don't often get that with designer, that they can kind of repeat that magic 10 years later.
Dean, you've started writing for fashion for The Guardian.
Yes.
And so you, some of your fashion is, you were formerly working for ID full-time, and you've gone from sort of speaking to a very fashion savvy, aware audience to some extent Mr. Ordinary.
Yeah.
Do you think Mr. Ordinary, how does Mr. Ordinary, does Raf enter Mr. Ordinary's brain?
I mean, I don't.
Is that how it works? Do you are you explaining fashion for Mr. Ordinary, or are you actually just letting them into this aspirational world?
Well, obviously, I think the main difference for me writing for that sort of publication is a newspaper has a lot more people reading it for a start, from a much wider demographic, and it has comments. Often hundreds of comments if something does well, like as in people read it but they don't like it, and you do get like a lot of very harsh criticism, the worst of which is moderated, but people will take you up on stuff because, I guess for starters, there's probably people reading a newspaper. There'll be people who know much more about the history of fashion than any of us, people who know like the really weird, arcane, in-depth things. So if you say something about a wide trouser, they might come back and say, no, but wide trousers, that's 1680s, what are you talking about? Or that's not even a wide trouser, that's a blah, blah, blah. Or, I'm retired, all my trousers are wide. Like, well done telling me to wear a wide trouser. And ruder things like that. But yeah, you get called up on a lot of stuff, and there is no universal fashion. There's always going to be someone who it looks ridiculous on, who'll say, people say, oh, I'm an 80-year-old man, so your advice that it's okay to like answer the front door in your underwear is idiotic, because if I do it, I'll look. Yeah, you think it's a fair point. I've said things like, I'll maybe wear a short-sleeved shirt to work, and people say, yeah, good one. That's a bit clever, isn't it? Like, it's what I do every day. However, with Raf, it is kind of, it's not available everywhere. You could all, I guess, go on the internet and maybe find some, but it's probably not that well known, I'm guessing, in wider non-fashion circles. And even if it is, it's quite hard to come by. But having said that, people like ASAP especially, and a few rappers, like it does get talked about a lot in music, like constantly, so I guess the name is very well known.
I guess like Margiela perhaps, but since Marc Jacobs Raf's widely considered by us as a total, apart from you, as a total genius, somebody who's probably as important to menswear as kind of Vivienne Westwood almost is to fashion in general, and yet he hasn't crossed over. Nobody's crossed over since Marc Jacobs, and that was only because of LVMH's money, really.
I think he's famous, definitely, but he's maybe on a level with people like Alexander Wang, Rick Owens, that sort of household notoriety.
I guess
I
Rick
would
Owens
think he's
has
a lot.
crossed over,
I would
hasn't
think, but I would think Raf's like a very higher level of designer personally than, he's kind of operating on the highest levels with Marc Jacobs maybe.
Let's look at the show. If you guys want to sort of just start commenting on the on what you're seeing. It's very blue. So for the strangely, he's got the journalists are standing up again.
And the photographers were down the middle, weren't they? The photographers were put down a pit down the middle of the runway.
That's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I remember watching this amazing sort of BBC programme about fashion from the mid-90s, where the photographers are all along the side of the runway.
Yeah.
And they were in between the front row and the runway, which is extraordinary.
Was that Imitation of Christ show, wasn't there, where they put all of the press on the runway and the models all sat
really?
They all had to come out onto the runway and the models were all sitting in the audience watching them.
Weird. This looks a little bit archivy to me. The sort of big white coats and
They're all graffitied, aren't they? All the white pieces are covered in graffiti. But then last season it all looked quite plain from the front until it turned around and you realised that there was the huge panelling on the back.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the details. John, what are you thinking as a
I'm seeing
non-fan?
clothes. It's I think you were saying earlier about kind of, sort of expectations and stuff. I think it's quite hard to look at this sometimes as someone who's less engaged or sort of interested in it, because it kind of all looks the same. And that sounds like a bizarre thing to say about something that obviously does have variety season to season, but as with Prada or Comme des Garçons, everyone's inevitably going to love it, and it's always inevitably going to have that sort of level of review. So you only sort of get your attention sparked when it's actually a negative review or something that actually people don't understand, or sort of that disrupts things a bit more. So the actual clothes seem, there's obviously kind of a very simple kind of long kind of silhouette going on, which may be why he's got photographers down the middle to kind of accentuate that kind of foreshortened impact. But it looks quite Prada-y, which I know sounds incredibly maybe kind of informed, but it kind of looks a bit like that.
No, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
And I suppose we did talk about the kind of the archives thing, so I guess I was assuming, because he's done a lot of that sticking things on things both at Dior and at his own label the last few seasons, so I guess it's quite nice not to see that. But it's you're kind of curious, if this was someone else and you didn't know that you were seeing a Raf Simons show, what would your reaction be? And I think that's the whole, where you come back to the cult thing. A cult is fundamentally about people who are invested in somebody and who perhaps can't see it clearly. Not saying I can, but you're kind of curious as to that whole Emperor's New Clothes factor, and what is it actually that's...
I mean, I often ask myself that when I'm looking at a show. I'm often like, if this was a graduate's collection, would you like it? But I don't think that, in a way, that doesn't make any sense. You can't remove the black magic from fashion.
But you can on a close rail in a shop. It's to a customer who walks in. I know in terms of the industry and larger culture and impact and everything, but in terms of, I guess, my original thing of being a bloke walking into a shop looking at clothes and probably walking past a Raf Simons rail to a Hedi Slimane rail or a Gucci rail or whatever else. I mean, obviously it says more about me than about the clothes, probably. And I think it also, it's about, no matter how disinterested you try and be as a reviewer or as a reporter, it shows you always have. I mean, Susie Menkes always says she just doesn't get denim. Never has, and that's it. So I think we all have predilections and things that we're going to gravitate towards, and sometimes when you're writing you overcompensate against it because you know that you're automatically going to like something, so you try and balance that. And with Raf Simons, I think I always try my best to kind of see, as I say, to see it, but
we've had a strange thing though. I think the last couple of panels on Raf, we've had sort of lukewarm reactions here, and then everybody's loved it, and you can see why everybody's loved it afterwards. So I'm kind of like definitely not going to. Dean, where's your head at with this now?
Well, it's very different, like we were hoping it would be. I'm sure he's done similar things in the past, but to, like you say, to the recent shows, it is really different without all that patching, printed stuff, all those colours, that sort of thing. It's quite feminine in places, or androgynous in places, for a Raf show, at least for a recent Raf show, with like arms all on show, and those kind of PVC looking jackets and big feminine collars and really long and boy girl looking models in places, really long hair over the face, that sort of thing. And it's obviously, without wanting to go too far, like it does sort of reflect some trends in a way. You think he's lives in his own world, does exactly the same thing, but there are like maybe elements of that whole JW thing that everyone's doing, if I can say that. Like, to me it feels like that, with baggier trousers and these kind of more blousey tops, like more feminine silhouettes, womanly collars, and the same sort of direction that maybe you think like Gucci moved in reactionarily. this week. Like you say,
I know what
Prada,
you mean.
it does look much more like a Prada show than you would expect for Raf. Definitely it does. And they've been doing their boy-girl thing. It does sort of, like so much, even roll necks under a jacket that could be a woman's jacket, that sort of thing you've been seeing a lot of recently.
I don't feel like there's anything in this collection though that isn't in some way, he hasn't in some way done before. I don't mean that as a diss.
I'm sure,
I'm
sure.
I mean, all of this feels like his language. I don't feel like he's magpied it from those other shows.
No, I'm not. I'm sure like you could go in his archive and find him doing stuff before most people, you know. I'm sure any of the things I mentioned, you could go back 10 years, but that doesn't. It has just first impressions. Unless it looks like something.
But it's kind of interesting that a lot of people seem to be ending up with this at the minute, with this, that, you know, as you say, JLB Anderson and a few other designers, and it's not necessarily a kind of an aesthetic that I was expecting. I don't know. But I suppose because everyone's been rambling on about, talking educatedly about, streetwear and sportwear and all that kind of energy for the last few seasons, and that's been obviously quite at the heart of LCM for the last few seasons, and it seemed to be kind of happening in Milan a bit as well. And so this kind of back to sort of 60s, 70s androgyny, it's kind of interesting that this is kind of where it's.
Well, I think one of the I really loved the Vestimont show last season in women's wear, you know, because it had these huge collars, you know, that kind of 1980s kind of feel to it, big jackets. So a lot of people see 70s in all of this, and they see kind of, but there's also that I guess that size is a hangover from the 70s, but like, you know, just those big shapes and lots of material and lots of volume. I mean, isn't it hard? It's quite interesting to see everybody move en masse, but it's almost like it's such a strong trend, this volume, that it's almost impossible not to, isn't it? Rob, what do you think? You've been single-handedly proposing volume all over the place for years.
Yeah, no, fair point. Firstly, I can't believe it's only 24 looks. Last season was 44, the season before was 40. And of those 24 looks, 3 of them are girls. I think varying things for me, there we go. I wanted the graphics. I think it's interesting, like we say about the street culture thing. I think maybe to a certain extent this could be a reaction to that, and it's going back a little bit more purist, because when it has the kind of decoupage elements on clothing, it means that it becomes kind of a trendier, obvious thing that people can tell it's that straight away. So maybe this is one of those things that's kind of, you know, to take it back to a more kind of purist form of tailoring and cutting.
Well, they felt that.
To kind of stop that. I mean, not to stop it, but to be like, okay, so, you know, Rocky, for example, because we've mentioned it, would he wear it? I'm not sure he would. I mean, maybe he would because of the fact that it is what it is, but I think there's definitely some interesting shapes in there. I really like the elongated waistcoats, for want of a better word, and the big lapels. I think looks great. I'm not sure I mean, there are maybe elements that I would wear, but previous seasons I've wanted like pretty much every other look or an element from most looks. But that's for that decoupage graphic thing, I suppose, because it's something that I associate with. But are these literally graffitied? They look like
it looks like hand-drawn
canvas coats, yeah. I'd be intrigued to see how they work out to go in store. It could be another one of those where it's just not available. And that's the one, yeah. circus music.
It's interesting though as well that what is that material? Leather or UPVC?
It's PVC.
Yeah, PVC.
They look better moving. I know it's kind of a really cliche thing to say, but there's kind of more of an elegance to them when you see them sort of flowing like that than the static images.
But also, as soon as you kind of, you know, those shapes in PVC somehow seem to fit more in Raf.
Language or?
Yeah, there's a sort of harsh, dark disco to them or something.
It's a very styled show, I think. Usually his collections would maybe be led more by garments, like the garments are so loud, so it's kind of a lot of individual pieces. What's he wearing?
What is he wearing?
But I do actually find it quite interesting that there is so much, the last few seasons have been so much analysis of what he's worn as well, because he's worn Prada and Helmut Lang and different things, and it's like there's a whole subculture of not just people looking at the show, but at what Raf's wearing. Probably a Tumblr somewhere on.
What Raf's wearing.
I think the collection looks a lot more like what you're wearing than any of us. All that kind of checks and houndstooth, that sort of thing.
I'm actually a plant.
Nice fabrics. But I do sort of miss all the mad trainers, because I think his shoe designer, whoever it is, I can never find out if anyone knows. I'd love to know, but whoever his shoe designer is, I think has got to be like maybe the greatest, well hidden, but also maybe the greatest or joint second greatest or something men's shoe designer alive in the world today. Like it's insane, not necessarily to wear, but just to make the maddest, most visionary shoes.
Yeah.
And no one, I'd love to interview him or her, but no one will say who that is.
There's so much sleeveless.
Yeah, which
This
isn't a good look.
That's quite a few more looks
the
than
sleeveless trench coat. It's not.
That doesn't feel that unusual for Raf to me. I feel like
he kind of did it in the Dior show, last Dior show as
but
well.
Raf's done loads of sleeveless things in his time.
Yeah. But the sleeveless trench is not even that flattering on these 6.5 foot models, so I don't know. I don't know how good it's going to look on anyone, really.
There's more looks appearing.
Oh.
So we're on like 37.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's really pushing the androgyny thing, you know, the amount of, up to, 23, there was 3 girls and there's more appearing, and they are literally wearing the same as the boys. It's not separate looks.
Mm.
And these closing looks are not, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Looks kind of like All Saints or something. I don't know.
Next collaboration.
Yeah.
That would be weird. I'm liking these coats.
I suppose that's a true Raf sign. I'm watching it back and forth, and suddenly I'm like, maybe I need a PVC coat.
Yeah.
And that's a sign, you know, like we say, when you watch it, it's always silent. I was going to say that this, of all the panels that I've done, when we were watching that, that's the quietest anyone's been when watching looks come through.
Yeah.
You know, you like with other brands, you will analyse it as it comes out.
Yeah.
With Raf, you're like, okay, what's coming?
Yeah. That's
But I suppose, like I say, that whole thing, I'm watching this back and forth and I'm like, maybe I could get away with a sleeveless waistcoat that's floor length, and maybe I need a PVC coat. And before seeing it, would they have said that? Maybe not.
Well, it feels like perhaps people there's like I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I'm just going to try it out anyway. But perhaps like the interesting people who for a long time had stuck to a language are abandoning their languages and just making stuff, and sometimes that comes out as quite conservative and boring, and then sometimes you get like the weird shoes at Prada, you know, with the weird kind of gum sole that's like coming up at the side, and you know, just why is it that shape? There's no real reason. Like menswear's been in quite a kind of, you know, it's been really into its codes and really into its set shapes and really into, you know, the classics, and now people are just sort of designing in some sort of weird free space almost.
It's mannerism basically, isn't it? It's that kind of just kind of a random sort of trying things out, sticking things to things, seeing what happens, trying things out in weird materials. It's
What do you two guys at the end think about that as an idea?
Well, yeah, we didn't want to see another collection that just looked like a Raf collection. It was really good. We want to see something different, and it is different.
I don't think he could carry on doing that, you know, because we'd be disappointed if it was just, you know, another collection of, you know, patched up pieces. We'd be like, yeah, great, we love it, but then next season we'll probably be like, we need something different now. So it's one of those things where like he's doing it before, you know, take it away at the peak of the wave. So then it brings out these kind of much more restrained, I say restrained, they're still, you know.
It is difficult to wear some of these things in London now, I think, because everyone will just think you're a hipster if you don't have a like giant vintage looking,
Are we not?
you know, check. Yeah, but it doesn't mean you want to like actively dress like one, you know.
Seek out looking like
that's all the more reason not to like. Yeah. But you know, vintage trenches, a giant big vintage trench, it doesn't, because people have been wearing that sort of thing a lot in a non-high fashion context.
I know what you mean. But then some of it's just quite odd, isn't it? I mean, some of it's just quite kind of, I don't know, so like there are those vintage like inspired pieces there, but then there are lots of pieces that are just quite opulent in their sort of form and a bit kind of unregulated. And I don't feel like they are that familiar. I don't know, I find it slightly disconcerting, this kind of designing. I feel like there's a few designers sort of designing without any sense of where they're going, and I feel like for a long time people were designing with a sense of mission. Like Raf, you sort of always thought, oh well, we're going somewhere with this, or he's trying to do this or say this, whereas this just seems almost like stuff.
But is that because the fact that, you know, as we were saying when we were talking earlier, it feels very much akin to what other people are doing this season, you know? It has that kind of like, you know, that 70s, you know, like we were saying, that kind of late 70s like influence that obviously was very clear through Gucci and kind of that, I mean, even the kind of huge overcoat idea, the kind of the longer shapes, which is, you know, something that Haider Ackermann's been doing it season after season of recent, which is beautiful. But do we think that because of the fact that so many other designers have done it this season that it just fits in, and we're used to seeing Raf and it being like it doesn't fit and we love it?
I know what you mean. I wasn't kind of, I know what you mean, but that wasn't why I was uncomfortable with it. More, it's not because it fits in, it's more just because I don't know
if you can get away with sleeveless.
To waff. I know, I just don't know, you know, what it's doing.
I mean, when at the weekend we were doing the Versace panel, we spent most of the time talking about figuring out who the Versace man was.
Yeah.
And so again, a little bit of me is watching this going, who is the Raf Simons guy?
Well, yeah, like there was like...
Generally as well as, you know, in this show. And sort of, you know, we were talking about who were Versace trying to talk to and what are they trying to say about themselves. And because Raf Simons sort of his status, who he is, what he is in the industry, to some extent, some of those rules never seem to apply. But I guess I'm just curious, is he almost designing for and within an industry in terms of the audience that he's talking to?
Yeah, because it feels quite decadent and quite kind of like not Baroque in a kind of 16th century way or 17th century, whatever it is, but in a like modern kind of way. All feels kind of weirdly Italo disco or something. A bit like, yeah, and kind of, yeah, I'm slightly
I'm always intrigued to see the kind of musical influences. That's why I was intrigued to hear the music to the show, because I feel like it's always such a big influence with what Raf does, like culturally. So when you see the pieces walking, we're saying 70s, and we're kind of like, there's kind of like big rounded-ended 60s lapels and things like that. And it's always has been, from him doing Manic Street Preachers to Joy Division collections, do you know what I mean? It's kind of that kind of music influence, and I always feel like he's always designing for this kind of like uber cool indie artist musician, and that you always kind of want to be as cool as, but will essentially never be as cool as. So it's kind of, that's why I've really enjoyed seeing the visual referencing that he's obviously been putting on the clothes, because suddenly it becomes clearer to you immediately, rather than afterwards where you're like, oh, this was the music to the show, and then he talks about the collection and you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense to me now.
Yeah, well, for a long time he's been designing for David Bowie in Berlin, and he's not. Right now he seems to be designing for David Bowie somewhere between The Hunger and When He Married a Man and Got His Shit Back Together.
The wilderness years.
Yeah.
The wilderness.
Like, it's all awesome 10th dimension. I'm not necessarily being critical, I'm just finding it really, like, for a long time we've been able to say this designer is proposing streetwear, this designer is Russian, this designer is combining, is breaking down gender boundaries, this designer is about luxury, and I'm feeling like this season we're getting quite a few shows that are just about nothing. Like, they're just about, so I'm sure there will be a reason why I did this and I'll feel really stupid, but like, it just feels like it's about, like, the shapes and the look feel almost random is always a terrible word that nobody should ever use. But just feel like we're like post rules or something, which might be a great thing. That could be a fantastic thing.
I mean, maybe it's like expectation as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you've had the last few seasons with people raving about it so heavily, you can't always be at the peak of, you can't, it's about, I mean, I don't want to use the word peaks and troughs because I'm not referring to this as a trough, but it's about kind of having those kind of like heavily visual collections and then something a little bit quieter, and kind of.
There's stuff I want from this.
Yeah.
There's stuff I didn't particularly think. I don't think this is any less good than the last collection. I think it's probably better.
Yeah, it's more interesting.
More interesting.
Definitely.
It's more alive. But I just don't actually understand it. I think it's quite elegant. I think it's elegant. I get its elegance. I just can't. I wouldn't know what to write about it.
I kind of agree with what you're saying about the whole post rules thing, because I think it is all getting a bit blurred, and it isn't as easy for people to. It's not. That kind of sense of designing for codes or for occasions is really disappearing. So there is that worry that everything does just blend into this giant heap of mush, in some sense, because you don't have that. And at London Collections, you see a lot of going to that Savile Row, sort of reception Savile House. You see sort of all of those kind of people standing around in guardsmen's uniforms and stuff, and it's incredibly definite. It's completely out of time. But this is kind of the other end from that, where it's just anything goes and it's all kind of fine, and there's no real sort of definition, I guess, in terms of who clothes are for, what they're about. it's things to cover you.
And I think a lot of the looks are really nice, but if I wanted to look like that, maybe I do want to look like that, but I'd just buy some like baggier suit trousers, like a vintage coat, wear a roll neck, rather than going to buy the stuff from Raf, which is fine, maybe better, but before he's been making like really kind of explicitly Raf pieces, like things with such a telltale knit pattern or graphic treatment or something like that, that it's almost like logo where you can spot it from a mile off and it could only be designed by him, and it's like statement clothing, but this is more like this all over ensembles, without many distinct pieces apart from PVC trench coats. No, it's a look that you can definitely, it's a good look. It's one you can achieve your own if you want to.
Yeah, although I think, I know what you mean. I don't know if how easy it would be in reality to go and get a huge sort of massively lapelled jacket or coat, or
Yeah, but yeah.
Rob, are you going to rescue us from our impasse?
In what way?
I just don't know how to digest this. Is that good? It's being beaten into some sort of weird submission a good sign?
Like I say, it's one of those things that if I don't get it, I'm always like, well, what's he getting that I'm not?
Yeah.
And I blame myself.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? It's that whole, I'm like, okay, like, try harder.
Yeah.
It's that whole rough thing where I'm literally like looking at it being like, what are you missing? Where is it? Like, and I mean, like you say, there are definitely pieces that I see that I would wear and that I would want, but as an overall, like I say, when I'm always intrigued to see the kind of graphic treatments or the music that goes alongside it and things like that. So it's, I look at the collection, and obviously as a fan and a big fan, I'm like, work it out.
Yeah. I think it's, it's all, I feel like everything's getting sort of a little bit Battlestar Galactica in some way. That everything's getting a bit kind of just swoopy and whoopy for not very obvious reasons. And I don't know, I think I'd rather be an Ewok.
I mean, me too.
Yeah. I'm not comfortable in just liking things based purely on them looking nice.
You should be.
I know,
Yeah,
but
that's what a curse.
Was that because you've gotten used to?
it's because I'm a modernist and I'm not comfortable with the postmodern world.
Or are you saying you'd rather something that most people don't find immediately attractive, or is that sort of, are you looking for something that's got?
Well, Raf was the industrial designer, wasn't he? He was the god of purpose. He was. We've done 2 panels where we've spoken about Raf pre the Serpents and Raf post the Serpents, so I kind of don't want to go back on it, because it's like, he's got a perfectly legitimate, fantastic, brilliant career since sort of he passed his adolescent stage. But it's strange, the world of just doing things because you like them.
Maybe he was just a bit short of time. And like, he thought, I'll just do like 1 pair of trousers, some shoes, and like a few coats. That'll be all right. Cut the sleeves off some, and get someone to draw all over all the white ones.
It'll be fine.
Because he's got a lot on his plate, especially like, busy man.
He is. That's true.
I think I'm used to like a kind of an obsessive reaction from a Raf show, especially the last couple of seasons, you know. And when you look at it and you don't get that immediate like weird endorphin rush that you need it and you want it and you can't survive without it, it leaves you feeling uncomfortable. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's definitely one of those collections where I don't, you know, like I say, straight away I was like, well, maybe I need a PVC coat, but that's because Raf's told me that. Do you know, like, which is a horrible thing to say, and I never thought I'd be that guy, but you know, when you become part of the cult, it's really difficult to get out of it.
You're hearing voices, aren't you?
Yeah, like, and so I think, you know, when you don't have that obsessive reaction immediately, it does leave you feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But yeah.
Do you think it looks English, British?
That's a strange question.
I think the colours do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of things about it, the kind of sort of the donkey jackets and those elements, yeah.
Well, we're definitely having a sort of working out en masse of like anything other than a bomber, aren't we? There's like, Dean, why did you ask that?
Well, just because it looks.
Does it to you?
Yeah.
But like obviously in the close-ups when they change the lighting, you know, and I know that he does that sometimes, is, you know, sort of playing with that a bit. It looks quite bleak and sort of, you know, hard times in this kind of blue light, but then in the yellow light and the close-ups is obviously quite a different feeling. So this is where I guess you sort of need to see it outside of that a little bit. But it's got that kind of, you know, wouldn't be out of place at LCM sort of slightly kind of sort of bemusing uniform thing going on.
It reminds me of my dad as well, because he wore a lot of roll necks, a lot of big, chunky, long, tweedy jackets.
Was he a professor?
Yeah, he is actually. But yeah, it does remind me. It reminds me of my history teacher from school as well. But any specific prints, that kind of, I don't know what you call it, brown, cream, green, houndstooth type thing.
What? I mean, since it's Raf, speaking about fathers is good.
Also, I guess
what's he a professor of?
A lot of these English. Probably a lot of these Czechs, I guess, are probably quite different close up than they are from here. They just look like a standard something you see everywhere. I guess if we zoomed in, they probably look nothing like. But you know, it kind of forms from this distance. It forms into what you expect it to look like.
Can we return to some detail shots, if that's all right? If we have any.
Like number 4 is.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of work there. Certainly a lot of stuff going on.
You know, it's part of the thing of, are you buying clothes, are you buying fashion, are you buying a Raf Simons piece, because it's in that weird territory between clothing and art and fashion, or whatever sort of applied sort of art you want to call it.
Has that mad scientist guy got a notebook in his pocket? Yeah, maybe that's got all your answers in there.
Yeah. The theory of everything.
Is that a scarf or? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is a sort of theory of everything type collection about sort of 70s Britain and Oxbridge mathematicians and that sort of thing.
And Oscars and
slowly been kind of debilitating illnesses. Genius. Perhaps.
Mabes.
Mabes. And super frayed and unfinished, isn't it?
Something weird about seeing, because materials all seem quite light, and you know, sort of, that's the other thing, I guess. You know, you were talking about purpose earlier. You expect, and I think you saw it a lot in London. A lot of the clothing was very wintry, was very heavy, very bulky, and this kind of quite flimsy material fabrication does makes kind of quite there's quite a disconcerting thing about that. I know Prada do that a lot as well, sort of, I guess, peeling away linings and taking away all the things that maybe make you feel comfortable, because so much of what coats are meant to be is about kind of, control, and sort of, this is all quite, it's not just soft, it's just sort of a bit slumped and...
I think the Battlestar Galactica thing you say is quite interesting. I just keep on seeing Blade Runner.
Right. Yeah.
Just oversized trench coats and tailoring and and it feels like it's like certain elements have been bizarrely looked at through a magnifying glass, and they're all slightly bigger than they should be. Things are too long, lapels are too big. But it's a difficult one to analyse because you're so used to being able to easily analyse Raf.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's the last 20 years have been awfully tasteful. Like
Not all of them.
They have, though. I mean, I know things have worn out as they've come over the trend curve and become untasteful. But everything started off in a, I mean, maybe people thought the 70s were tasteful. I don't know. I'm sure they did. Let's go to closing thoughts, because I'm not sure that I'm gonna see the light. So, Dean, please help me. What should I think?
Well, I think what's good is it's taking old ideas and doing something quite new with them, like reinventing the patterns, doing crazy sizes, layering, all that stuff. I'd never understand why menswear is so obsessed with heritage. Like how many hundreds of years ago a shoemaker first opened up shop or that sort of thing. But I think to take, it's harder to do this in a way than to do that. It's harder to make new stuff out of older tropes, older types of garments. And yeah, we were hoping for something really different from what he does, what he has been doing at least for 2 or 3 seasons, and it definitely is. I think it'll get good reviews, right?
Probably.
Well, I think the heritage thing is because it's all an extension of function, isn't it? It's all the anti-fashion. It's like you're not really buying this because you're trying to look good. You're buying it because this is the best. Like the idea of the $100,000 watch. It's like still sold on the fact that it's waterproof to 100 foot or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're really buying this because it's waterproof, not because it's a big bracelet, you big Jessie. Which is basically what it is. Yeah. Anything else? Sorry.
No.
Rob?
It's definitely different to previous seasons, which is initially what we said we wanted. I think that it's one of those things that you wish for it and then you see it and you're like, oh crap, what do I do with it now? I wanted something different. Like I say, I think it's difficult. I don't write about fashion as a journalist. I consume it as a visual mind and as a consumer. So it's one of those bizarre things for me as well to view it as a fan. It's like I say, I view it and I'm like, if I don't get it, that's my fault, not something's wrong with it. I think there are definitely elements in it that I love. I need to close that circle because I feel like I've got about halfway around it and I need to work out the rest, but I'm sure when it gets around, as you say, I'm sure it'll get great reviews. And I think we'll work it out over the next couple of months, weeks, however long it takes, because it's Raf. That's what we do with it.
Yeah. There's definitely a sort of rebellion against rationalisation happening. Like if you think of Grace Wells Bonner, it's like there's nothing. There's no, I can't, it's beautiful, it's amazing, but strip the casting away and the fashion is just decadent. I can't really I I suppose I can rationalise it as a reaction, but it's quite hard to rationalise. Like, you know, like, because we've had the sportswear thing, we had 10 years ago, we had Hedy doing like youth, we had Raf doing his kind of science moon Joy Division boy thing. We had people talking to different eras, but this just sort of feels like it almost defies categorization. I don't know. John?
Still not a believer, but I, going back to something earlier, I think it would be interesting to see how people do react to the show, and maybe quite good if people didn't, for once, kind of, fall over themselves and love it, and sort of just to have a bit of a kind of a broader conversation, because I think it's quite interesting sitting on a panel, not necessarily getting what we perhaps were expecting from a show, but having quite an interesting conversation about the fact that menswear in general is going into a bit of a weird stage. And maybe it says more about that than about anything that we've actually seen.
Am I right? It is weird, or is it not actually that weird?
It is, because like what's really hip is very hard to wear. I think that for me would be what's weird about it. Can see like why that Gucci shows, why that's caused such a stir, but like how often do you see someone wearing like a full look like that? Would you actually wear that?
The Gucci thing, I was like, yeah, I like it, I get it, I think it's great, but I would never wear it. The same, like, when I look at Saint Laurent, I'm like, it's amazing, but I don't have a 26-inch waist, so I'm never going to be able to wear that. And I think what I liked about Raf was it was kind of, I don't want to say size defiant, but it was one of those things that, it was kind of, you didn't, as much as Raf is, iconic for having a specific type of boy or a specific type of look that walks the show, it's definitely kind of can cross that. And I think that's why I feel slightly uncomfortable with that, because I'm like, I can't wear a sleeveless trench coat, so what the hell do I do other than get dumbbells and work it out?
Well, it's very young, isn't it? Because it's like, what's Stefan's surname? Beautiful, tall Stefan. But like, he's American. Anyway, him. He wears, like, he's been wearing that look for a long time, like around town, like the big trouser and
What, Stefan from Dawson Superstars?
yes.
He's not that tall. Stefan, God, what is his surname? Yeah, that is his look, the hair and everything.
Yeah, I mean, he basically invented fashion, but like, he's had that look for a long time, but it is really difficult, but everything outside of that just feels like, I can see why all these designers have done it, because it's so impossible to not feel like that is just how it has to be.
I hope it's about music for me. I hope that
The collection's
they'll become a music reference, and I'll be like, okay, cool, like, I get it, like, that's my visual anchor.
What musicians look like that?
I don't know, but I just hope there is one.
I was thinking maybe Dapper Laughs.
Do we have we got any? Has there been any more chat about? Have we got a press release just before we finish off? Has the press release come up? Has anybody said anything on Twitter about what the collection's about?
Does ASAP Rocky like it?
Somebody's saying it's about school days, desk graffiti or lab coat, school assembly stage, centre conference.
Yeah.
When would Raf been at school? He's about sort of 8 years older than me, so
Late 80s?
yeah, mid to late
80s.
80s. Yeah. I mean, I can see the graffiti. It feels a bit stuck on, almost literally.
Yeah, like the professors' trench coats and the geography teachers' plaids.
Right. So it's a meditation on school.
That's just one thing.
Whoa.
stuff that needs to go to the archives.
Right, basically we need a phone call from Raf Simons.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
we need an explanation.
Well, maybe we should, in the interest of being succinct, we should probably wrap up. So thank you very, very, very much. What are we saying overall? That we sort of like it, we just don't know why, and we can't wait to find out.
You can say that.
What would you say?
I'll live if I don't find out.
Okay.
I kind of judge myself for wanting to know so badly, you know?
And Dean?
Yeah, I think it's really good. I don't know if there is some great mystery, you know? I think if you want to understand this, you'd be better off going to like understand what Loewe is doing and then come back to this, and then you'd understand.
Yeah, but you sort of feel like he's bashing out such virgin territory at Loewe, and because he kind of started it, it's kind of fine. And he'll always be, every show, he'll always be a very obvious drum. Like, you're never left in doubt at the end of his show what he's going on about with J-Dubs.
Is that Anders?
Yeah.
Well,
It's good hair.
let's say goodbye then. Thank you very much for pondering and
Being indecisive.
trying to work out the meaning.
Well, we should have discussed the title actually.
Did we not? We did.
Well, after seeing it.
Oh, well, do you want to talk
No,
about
I need to know. Because it is all
Is he
that
gonna
kind of
go-
archive. It is all that kind of archive clothing, and he's saying no longer relevant.
to what
Maybe-
his archives are no longer relevant?
Maybe he's saying all those types of clothing that he kind of showed or remade in that collection are no longer relevant.
I think he's saying his archives are no longer relevant.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that would make more sense.
Or maybe it goes back to the archive when it's not relevant.
Or coming back to your purpose thing, nothing's relevant.
Maybe he's become irrelevant and he's gone to the archives.
Let's archive Raf for the evening.
Do you think he longs to understand being irrelevant? No?
I think the type's lovely.
Do you not feel it's a bit 2000 and early 2013?
The type?
It's a bit man about
I don't
town.
think the type, well,
It is beautiful. I mean,
I
I'd
don't
let him
think
off,
it's fair.
I'm
I
sure.
don't think.
But it does
You of
feel
all
like-
people,
happy
you
with
should.
it. I'm happy with it. Raf doing a poster, I'm happy with it.
I mean, it's a nice poster, but I'm just a bit, anyway.
Sorry.
I think
Spacing isn't quite.
I do. Yeah, I do. Just I feel like maybe I've seen that. I think maybe I've
Yeah,
seen
but I
all
think
fonts.
because it's text about archives, he can't do like a really good new font treatment on it.
I mean, thank God it's not Times New Roman with a border.
Comic
That
Sans.
would do my head.
I mean, I kind of would be quite into that.
Really?
Yeah, because it'd be so middle of the road and just so like, so painful, it's good.
Do you recognise what font that is?
I don't.
Looks like
Verdana, maybe?
Right.
We're stopping.
Let's leave it at that. I feel we're safely back on a place of purpose fonts, so we will depart the place of mystery. Simons. Thank you.